الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good morning Instagram fam, friends and followers of as-Saafiy, and welcome to another episode of Revert Reflections. Yesterday we started a discussion about dealing with depression, and today I would like to talk briefly about triggers, specifically avoiding triggers. Brothers and sisters, people who experience what we call situational depression, which means or refers to depression brought on by an event or some circumstance. Those people who experience the situational depression, and most of us do, should realize that this type of depression is caused by something. And the more adept we are at recognizing or identifying those causes or those triggers, the more we can avoid them and thereby minimize our bouts with depression. This knowledge will also help us to identify the signs of depression in ourselves and in others, so that we can see that this situation happened, this is likely going to lead this person to be depressed. We can actually help others and help ourselves. And will also, another benefit of recognizing or being able to identify these triggers is we can avoid triggering depression in others. We can avoid being triggers of depression for others, doing things that will cause other people to be depressed. Some of the common triggers of depression that all of us deal with include grief and loss. Someone you love, someone you care about passes away, or is terminally ill and death is imminent. That grief can cause us to spin into a state of depression or fall into a state of depression. Another trigger is rejection. And rejection comes in many forms. A person could apply for a position, apply for a promotion, and not get it. A person could plan some type of dinner party and invite a bunch of people that he thinks or she thinks are his or her close friends, and people who would accept the invitation and attend. And they don't attend, they don't show up. They just don't even, and they don't give a reason or justification. They just don't attend. The person has all this food, they go into all this trouble, and people don't show up. These are all forms, and there are many other forms of rejection, and we experience those. And for many of us, that rejection, it causes us to be depressed. Stress can cause us to be depressed. Illness, a person gets ill, a person has some health issues, specifically health issues that are challenging to resolve. A person has, for example, high cholesterol. A person has a problem with weight, and that weight brings on other health concerns, and they struggle with their weight. A person may have high blood pressure, and it's hard to identify what is the cause of that, and the person is struggling to change their lifestyle and change some of the choices that they make in their lifestyle to get their blood pressure under control. They're tethered to certain yellow bottles of medicine, taking pills, morning, noon, and night, and still not getting better. That creates what? A certain level of stress, and that stress creates a certain level, and can create a certain level of depression. Just being down in the dumps and just feeling despondent, feeling hopeless. Financial difficulty, another one that many of us experience. Financial difficulty is another trigger. Bills are mounting up, and what's coming in is not enough to cover what needs to go out. Life transitions, changes in our life that take us out of our comfort zone, even if those changes are positive. Person gets a job in another state and has to move out of state, and that job offers them a lot of perks and benefits, including a great salary and benefit package, and people would think you'd be happy about that. No, I'm depressed. Why? Because I'm leaving my comfort zone. And one last one that I wanted to mention and kind of focus on was toxic relationships. Toxic relationships are a huge trigger for depression. Toxic relationships could be relationships with a current spouse, relationships with a former spouse, relationships with one's children, relationships with parents, one's friends and associates and brothers and sisters in the masjid. Toxic relationships, brothers and sisters, are a major trigger for depression in Muslim communities. Unfortunately, whether we want to admit it or not, one of our problems, one of the reasons why this is such an issue is because we're not prepared to admit it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of abuse that occurs in Muslim communities. I'm not talking about one person hitting another person. Abuse doesn't have to be physical. Abuse can be verbal. It can be emotional. It can be financial. There's lots of abuse that occurs in Muslim communities. And some of it is overt. Some of it is clear. You can clearly see it occurring and playing out right in front of you. But much of it, in fact, most of it, is subtle or passive aggressive, and therefore not easily detected, not even by the abuser. The person meting out the abuse doesn't realize that they're abusing someone. And those who are witnessing the abuse, they don't see it happening in front of them. They say, what? I don't see any abuse. Why? Because it's so subtle. It's so inconspicuous. Because of the effect of these toxic relationships, and these relationships are affecting people. People in Muslim communities are affected by how they are treated, how poorly they are treated within their own community. The people who should treat them the best are treating them the worst. And because of the effect of these toxic relationships on the community as a whole and on the individual psyches of individual Muslims, Islam has placed a great deal of emphasis on fostering healthy relationships. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dedicates almost an entire surah to talking about interpersonal relationships and telling the Muslims how they should deal with each other in a way that will foster unity and the spirit of community. Surah Al-Hujurat, an entire surah almost dedicated to this point. Why? Because Islam wants the community to be together. One, it also doesn't want individuals to be depressed because they're in this toxic relationship that they have to be in because these are their brothers and sisters in Islam that they're supposed to be with and associate with and try to foster a sense of community with. Also, you find that the Prophet ﷺ stressed and emphasized the importance of healthy relationships. For example, you have in the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Al-maru ala dini khalili falyanzur ahadukum man yukhalil." He said, a person will follow the faith of his closest companion, so choose your friends wisely. Make sure you're always in a healthy relationship, healthy for you spiritually, but also healthy for you what? Mentally. Don't associate with people who are going to bring you down and create depression. They're going to abuse you in all the ways that abuse can occur. Brothers and sisters, at the end of the day, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say that it's very important for us to be mindful of our associates and how those associates in our environment are affecting, I should say, how our associates and our environment are affecting our psyche and causing us to feel depression. We also have to understand, as Muslims in a community setting, how our actions and how our behavior may be creating and causing depression for others. I've spoken to people and I've had my own experiences. There is subtle racism. There is ethnic prejudice. There is boycotting and abandonment. There is class prejudice. There's so much going on and so much abuse occurring in the Muslim community. And that's why you see something called the people who are unmosqued. The people who are leaving the mosques, leaving the communities and only associating here and there, coming for Eid, maybe coming for Jumu'ah and leaving quickly. But you have some people who don't even come for Jumu'ah. They'll come for Eid, they'll come for an event here or there, but they won't really associate with the community. Why? Why is this happening? Why are people withdrawing from the Muslim community? We have to ask ourselves how much of that is a toxicity that we have created, that we fostered, which is the contradiction, the antithesis of what we're supposed to be fostering. Ask yourself, ask others, and answer candidly if you're asked. And you will see, we will see, that there's a lot of toxicity in our communities. And that's why people are pulling back and pulling away, moving out to other places where it's less toxic or it's actually healthy. We have to ask ourselves, check ourselves, and clean up our act, and realize that sometimes we are the cause of the depression that is afflicting many of us. And on top of that, we're creating a double problem, compounding the problem, because we've made depression a taboo. So people are depressed and they don't feel comfortable saying, hey, I feel depressed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us. There's a lot more that we want to say on this topic, but we'll stop for now and we'll continue and pick it up inshallah ta'ala tomorrow morning. But as always, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless your houses, to bless your spouses, to bless your children, to bless your sources of livelihood and income, to bless you and to make you blessed wherever you may be, to shower you with His blessings and to surround you with His protection. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.